Chapter 26. North side of the trial ground. Middle of monster territory. The winds howled faintly, brushing past thick foliage as silence ruled over the wild land. Perched high in the arms of a gnarled ancient tree, Raziel sat with one leg dangling lazily, concealed within a dense thicket of leaves and branches. His violet eyes flickered with calculated anticipation, locked onto the pale marble platform far below. Preparations are all set, now. He leaned back against the bark with a soft, amused sigh. All I have to do is wait for the rat to take the bait. It had only been 10 minutes since he'd been teleported here, 10 minutes since he tricked death itself and signed a blood spirit contract with Karandor, the eternal guardian of the Dragonheart. It should have taken even less time, honestly. But Raziel had insisted Karandor fully customize the pocket secret realm and carve the inscription onto the stone tablet exactly as he required. Not that Raziel actually used this secret realm in the usual way. Oh, no. He'd butchered its traditional purpose entirely. Most people would use a pocket realm for training, hiding, or survival. A miniature dimension, a priceless treasure hoarded by sect masters and monarchs. But Raziel, he turned it into a damn stage. Literally. The secret realm had been condensed and anchored here, a white marble platform, suspended slightly above the ground, like a sacred altar, open on all sides, glowing faintly under the moonlight, and almost impossible to miss even from several miles away. A gleaming pillar rose from its center, and atop it stood a stone tablet, inscribed with glowing ancient text that shimmered like firelight caught in crystal. It was the ultimate attention grabber. No stealth, no secrecy, pure spectacle. No one uses pocket realms this wastefully. Even the system had muttered in disbelief earlier. It's basically a glowing billboard for your enemies to shoot at. But Raziel didn't care. It needed to be seen. Because what mattered was who would see it. On the front of the stone tablet, etched in majestic draconic script, a riddle burned softly with ethereal light. Where fire sleeps and silence sings, the dragon's heart beneath flame clings. To tread the path, let power rise, or fall in ash neath shattered skies. 1,000 cores, in balance laid, shall wake the flame where none have stayed. But woe to those who dare unfit. The pyre's feast where cowards sit. Let only strength and will remain. The weak shall die, the bold shall reign. Tainted, rapist, shame, not to be trusted, blah blah ball bullshit. So, instead of words, he crafted a lure. Let the hero come chasing power instead of following him. Let him walk into the trap of his own desire. And when he does, Raziel muttered under his breath, his smile curling darkly. That's when the game begins. 5 more minutes later, Raziel shifted slightly on the branch, the bark rough against his palm. Just how long is that bastard going to take? He muttered under his breath, his voice tinged with equal parts irritation and anticipation. Every passing second felt like another itch beneath his skin. The waiting wasn't hard. Tainted, rapist, shame, not to be trusted, blah blah ball bullshit. So, instead of words, he crafted a lure. Let the hero come chasing power instead of following him. Let him walk into the trap of his own desire. And when he does, Raziel muttered under his breath, his smile curling darkly. That's when the game begins. 5 more minutes later, Raziel shifted slightly on the branch, the bark rough against his palm. Just how long is that bastard going to take? He muttered under his breath, his voice tinged with equal parts irritation and anticipation. Every passing second felt like another itch beneath his skin. The waiting wasn't hard. It was excruciating. His posture was tense. The bark beneath him was rough and uncomfortable, the leaves scratching at his skin, but he didn't move. He couldn't afford to. Not yet. Down below, the marble platform stood like a temple in the wilderness, glowing faintly, beckoning. The trap was perfect. The performance was ready. Only the main actor was missing. Host, giving up the dragon heart just to collect elemental cores. This is not worth it. Not even close. The system's tone was drenched in fatigue, as though it had aged centuries just watching Raziel operate. That relic is a mid to late arc artifact. The protagonist was never supposed to get it until at least 3 years into the story's main timeline. We're in the beginning. This is basically handing him a cheat code and wrapping it in a pretty bow. Raziel didn't even glance up, handing a great sword forged for gods to a toddler. It won't make him powerful. He won't wield it. It'll wield him. A short silence passed. The system, unconvinced but cautious, finally responded. I understand the metaphor, but statistically, you're still giving him a massive shortcut. By obtaining the Dragon Heart now, he'll accelerate far beyond schedule. My projections estimate he'll reach the strength meant for year 3 within just 1 year. Maybe less. This is a dangerous variable, a reckless move. Raziel's smile didn't fade. If anything, it grew colder. Then let him reach that level, he said softly, eyes glowing with eerie calm. Because if I can't crush him within a year with a system and future knowledge of my own, then I don't deserve to win this game. The leaves around him rustled, almost in agreement, or perhaps in warning. But Raziel wasn't done. He leaned forward, tone dropping into something more dangerous, more predatory. Besides, those 1,000 elemental cores, that's just phase 1 of the operation. I won't just take a profit. His voice dropped to a whisper, cold and cruel. I am going to suck everything dry. The system didn't respond after that. What was there to say? Suddenly, Raziel's ears twitched. Footsteps. His pupils narrowed, and a slow breath slipped from his lungs. They're here, he whispered in his mind. Without moving an inch, he steadied his breath and silenced even the beat of his heart, sinking deeper into the natural camouflage of the thick canopy. Nestled high in the crown of a towering tree, he remained motionless, each leaf and shadow a shield against the approaching presence. He couldn't afford even the slightest sound, not the creak of a branch, not the brush of fabric. One wrong move, and it was over. Not just for him, but for the elaborate plan he had spun from threads of deception and foresight. His only saving grace, Aaron, the protagonist, wasn't particularly sharp when it came to sensory talents. That man was a frontline warrior, brute force incarnate. Those 1,000 elemental cores? That's just phase 1 of the operation. I won't just take a profit. His voice dropped to a whisper, cold and cruel. I am going to suck everything dry. The system didn't respond after that. What was there to say? Suddenly, Raziel's ears twitched. Footsteps. His pupils narrowed, and a slow breath slipped from his lungs. They're here, he whispered in his mind. Without moving an inch, he steadied his breath and silenced even the beat of his heart, sinking deeper into the natural camouflage of the thick canopy. Nestled high in the crown of a towering tree, he remained motionless, each leaf and shadow a shield against the approaching presence. He couldn't afford even the slightest sound, not the creak of a branch, not the brush of fabric. One wrong move, and it was over. Not just for him, but for the elaborate plan he had spun from threads of deception and foresight. His only saving grace, Aaron, the protagonist, wasn't particularly sharp when it came to sensory talents. That man was a frontline warrior, brute force incarnate. The kind who charged into battle like a storm, smashing through everything in his path with strength, not subtlety. And fortunately for Raziel, his followers were cut from the same cloth blunt edges in a game that required precision. Had it been Celine, the Saintess, or Silva Fairlith with her army of whispering spirits, he wouldn't have stood a chance. Those two were like wind and silk, sensitive to even the faintest tremor in mana. Just their proximity would have ripped through his veil of stealth like fire through dry parchment. As for why he had chosen this particular spot high up in a tree whose branches stretched like skeletal arms above the monster-infested wilds. Monsters rarely climbed, too large and heavy for the delicate balance of branches. It was one of the few safe zones monsters ignored, and people, in turn, never thought to search. From up here, he had a perfect vantage. Leaves veiled him, but through the gaps, he saw everything below. From the ground looking up, however, the leaves were a fortress. And then, the silence broke a chorus of distant footsteps. A soft clang of steel against steel. Voices, low but disciplined. Raziel's eyes sharpened. Dozens, no, nearly 80 people or more were moving as one unit, weaving through the forest like a hunting pack. Some wore glimmering metallic armor, others preferred lighter gear, but the coordination was undeniable. Knights, mages, archers, assassins, every class was present, a mobile army cloaked in lethal purpose. They moved with trained precision, no wasted motions, no mindless chatter. But then Raziel's stomach lurched. His gaze shifted slightly, and his expression soured. A low groan threatened to escape his lips. Just my rotten luck, he cursed internally. Beside Aaron floated a figure like a moon beside a star. His stomach twisted. A wave of nausea climbed up his throat as his eyes fell on the woman walking beside Aaron. The sight alone made his chest tighten, a familiar pressure building in his lungs. She was wrapped in a white robe adorned with golden embroidery, her long hair glowing like molten sunlight. Golden eyes radiated calm, divine serenity. She seemed to exude purity, but Raziel could feel it. The overwhelming tidal wave of mana surrounding her like a divine barrier. It wasn't just powerful, it was oppressive. Selene Luminous, the saintess of the Church of Light. What is she doing here? Wasn't she supposed to be in the south? A fucking butterfly effect this fast? Why the hell is she here? Raziel gritted his teeth, keeping every muscle frozen. Even breathing now felt like risking death. Behind her, a procession of white-robed priests and armored holy knights followed in solemn formation. Their eyes were sharp, hands hovering near blades and spell scrolls, ever watchful. But then Raziel's stomach lurched. His gaze shifted slightly, and his expression soured. A low groan threatened to escape his lips. Just my rotten luck, he cursed internally. Beside Aaron floated a figure like a moon beside a star. His stomach twisted. A wave of nausea climbed up his throat as his eyes fell on the woman walking beside Aaron. The sight alone made his chest tighten, a familiar pressure building in his lungs. She was wrapped in a white robe adorned with golden embroidery, her long hair glowing like molten sunlight. Golden eyes radiated calm, divine serenity. She seemed to exude purity, but Raziel could feel it. The overwhelming tidal wave of mana surrounding her like a divine barrier. It wasn't just powerful, it was oppressive. Selene Luminous, the saintess of the Church of Light. What is she doing here? Wasn't she supposed to be in the south? A fucking butterfly effect this fast? Why the hell is she here? Raziel gritted his teeth, keeping every muscle frozen. Even breathing now felt like risking death. Behind her, a procession of white-robed priests and armored holy knights followed in solemn formation. Their eyes were sharp, hands hovering near blades and spell scrolls, ever watchful. It was clear one wrong twitch near their saintess, and they'd launch divine judgment without hesitation. Nearly half the entire entourage, maybe 50 people, belonged to her faction alone. The other half seemed to obey Aaron, and the remaining few, independent hunters and academy talents, who had simply gravitated towards strength and protection in numbers. Raziel's grip tightened around the bar. He was surrounded, and all it would take was one flicker of awareness, one accidental noise, one poorly timed heartbeat, and the saintess would zero in on him like a hawk. Just his shitty luck. Chapter 27. Raziel had a storm of thoughts swirling in his mind, but outwardly, he remained composed, still as the bark he leaned against. No twitch, no breath. Right now, the only thing he could afford to do was not get caught. If he did, well, he'd deal with that disaster when it came. For now, he hadn't. Down below, a calm yet curious voice rang out. If I am not mistaken, that is draconic language, right? Selena's golden eyes were fixed on the raised platform of smooth, shining white marble. At its center stood a towering tablet, carved with mysterious glowing runes that spiraled up a pole like ancient declarations frozen in light. Yes, that is correct, Lady Selena. Aaron replied, his gaze mirroring hers. His crimson eyes narrowed, analyzing the strange glyphs. The aura around him shifted, focused, sharpened. A sharp voice broke the moment. Your Holiness, this place looks alarmingly suspicious. A woman in a pristine white cleric's robe stepped forward. Her pink-framed glasses shimmered in the sunlight as she adjusted them nervously. I studied every inch of the official terrain map, including the routes provided personally by the Platinum Knight himself. There was nothing about a platform like this mentioned. She paused, bowing respectfully. Forgive me for speaking out of turn, but I suspect this is either a trap or an anomalous phenomenon of the trial gates. I advise we avoid it. Selena turned to her with a warm, serene smile. Nyla, there's no need for constant apologies. Giving advice is part of your duty as my personal, holy attendant. Yes, Your Grace. Nyla bowed lower, her expression still tense. Selena, meanwhile, was already examining the tablet again. It is fascinating, but active. It likely leads to the next phase of this trial. Aaron's fingers curled slightly. The runes pulsed under his gaze. Suddenly, his heart began pounding. It wasn't just anticipation, it was fate. That voice. That instinct. Since childhood, this pull had always guided him an invisible whisper, a divine certainty. Every time he followed it, he found fortune. And this time, it was different. The feeling inside Arion's chest, this inexplicable pull, wasn't just familiar. It was the strongest he'd ever felt in his life. His heart thundered in his chest, each beat like a war drum echoing through his bones. The world seemed to narrow, the murmurs around him fading as the tablet's inscription glowed faintly, calling to something deep within his soul. Without hesitation, he turned. Lie old, Arion said, voice firm and unwavering. Take out 1,000 elemental cores. We're going. There was no second thought. No logic. No strategy. Only instinct and faith in it. But beside him, the red-haired Lyold looked as though he had just been stabbed through the heart. 1,000? He choked, eyes widening in disbelief. Can't 100 do the job? How about I pay the rest in installments? I'll give 50 every month, I swear. Interest-free. He clasped his hands like a merchant begging for mercy from the heavens. But one glance from Arion, just one sharp, no-nonsense glare, and he deflated completely. With a deep, defeated groan, he extended the heavy sack with both hands, his expression devastated, as if he just handed over his soul instead of currency. Damn it all! Lyold muttered under his breath, eyes glossy with unshed tears. I was saving that for my retirement. Or maybe to buy a girlfriend someday. Arion ignored the melodrama and turned toward the Saintess. Lady Selena, he said with a respectful nod, please excuse us, I'll be heading in. I will join you, Selena replied, her voice calm but laced with a spark of curiosity. It intrigues me. Arion blinked. You will? He hesitated. But it might be dangerous. We still don't know if it's a trap, he said carefully, the edge of concern in his voice betraying the thoughts racing through his mind. He didn't dare say it out loud, but he didn't need to. It was too obvious. If she got hurt even the slightest scratch, the church, those fanatics, might very well tear down the entire Gate of Worth stone by stone just to avenge her. If it was just danger, she could handle it, no doubt. In fact, if she so much as cracked one of the protective amulets she must be wearing, it was almost certain that within seconds, 8, no, maybe even 9 platinum-ranked knights would crash through the gates with divine fury. No exaggeration, she was, by far, the most protected person here. No, protected wasn't the word. She was practically worshipped, pampered. But Selena just smiled. That serene, radiant smile of hers that could silence storms. Don't worry, I'll protect you all, she said softly, golden eyes glimmering, her hair catching the breeze like sunlight woven into silk. Then every single one of us will suffer the holy punishment of agony. Remember that. Her voice echoed through the clearing like a divine decree. The non-church members, Arion's team, and others visibly paled. One archer audibly gulped, whispering under his breath, "Holy punishment of agony." But the Saintess's followers, their response was chilling. "That punishment is too light," they declared in unison, fire burning in their eyes. "If a scratch dares touch the Saintess, we should all be executed instead." Arion simply sighed, massaging his temple. He had long stopped trying to understand these lunatics. It was like they would sacrifice their own families if someone so much as joked about the gods in their presence. And when it came to Selena, their fanaticism was on another level entirely. High above, hidden within the dense canopy of twisted branches and dew-laced leaves, Raziel crouched with every muscle in his body taut. Pressure clawed at his chest. His lungs burned slightly from holding his breath for so long. Sweat slid down his temples despite the cold breeze. Now! I'll get caught now! No, now! Or, now? The thought repeated like a curse. But luck, sweet, fragile luck, had not betrayed him yet. Down below, the platform gleamed like sacred marble bathed in morning light. The air buzzed with mana, its current almost seductive. He knew what it meant. He could read the scene like a book. Ch! Greedy bastard, Raziel thought, narrowing his eyes at Arion, who was standing confidently with that ever self-righteous look of his. Of course, the protagonist would jump at the bait like a starving dog. A shiny platform with glowing runes, his sense of destiny must be tingling. People have spider sense, but this bastard have goblin senses. He watched Arion closely. That face, that calm composure, that holy glow in his goddamn eyes. This motherfucker was born to steal, robbing fate, stealing lives, calling it opportunity like it's divine will. I hate him. I swear, I hate him with every cell in my body, Raziel mentally cursed. But then again, how much can one head curse? Let them go, he thought bitterly. Let them get teleported to whatever bullshit dragon trial this is. All he needed was for them to step on that damn platform so he could finally breathe. 7 whole minutes. He'd held his position for 7 excruciating minutes. Even though he could hold his breath for 10, he wasn't confident in staying unnoticed for much longer. His limbs were beginning to tingle, and his heartbeat echoed in his ears. Finally, he saw it. The group was moving. Arion placed the 1,000 elemental cores on the separate raised altar. The magic responded instantly, humming with a low, rhythmic pulse. Raziel released a shaky breath of relief, but his brow furrowed. Why didn't she notice me? The Saintess, Selena. He knew with absolute certainty that she was sensitive to mana, to life force. She once detected a poisoned squirrel 2 meters underground. She once sensed the heartbeat of a dying sparrow in the middle of a bathing which was 300 meters away from her. So how? Is it my luck? Is it finally returning? The thought made his throat tighten. If it wasn't for the risk of betraying his position, he might have actually cried. His luck had betrayed him for so long. The idea of it coming back now felt too good to be true. But then, the platform lit up. The glowing emerald circle burst to life on the marble floor. Symbols danced, runes aligned, mana surged. They're leaving. They're actually leaving. A grin ghosted over Raziel's lips. Victory. And then, Selena. Her head slowly tilted upward. Her golden eyes locked onto his. Just for a moment. A second. Barely enough to call it a glance. But it happened. Their eyes met. Did she see me? Raziel's breath shattered, involuntarily sucked in between clenched teeth. His chest tightened with alarm. Our eyes met. I saw it. I know I did. Yet she turned away, smiling gently, as if admiring the leaves, as if nothing had happened. No, that wasn't random. Our eyes met. I know they did. I'm not imagining it. Panic slithered up his spine. Then, hey! There's someone up in the tree! Nyla suddenly shouted, her voice sharp as steel. Her finger shot up, pointing directly at Raziel's perch. Mana trembled in the air, disturbed by the sudden breath he'd released. Heads turned. Arion's eyes snapped to where she pointed. Unlike the others, He didn't need to squint. His eyes, superior in clarity, pierced through the leaves. His gaze sharpened. Is that the shame of House Vireland? Purple potato? His hand instinctively fell to the hilt of his sword. A pit opened in his stomach. Was this a trap? He glanced down at the glowing emerald array beneath his feet. Tension coiled in his chest. He didn't know why, but whenever he saw that face, that presence, that cursed existence, something buried inside him would boil. Hate. Pure, guttural hate. Guys, this is a Tra-Tilde, he began to shout. Swish. A flash of emerald light exploded, and just like that, they vanished. All of them, gone. Raziel blinked, then leaned back against the rough bark behind him, body trembling with the aftershock. Holy shit, I almost got caught. His heart pounded like a war drum in his ears. But then the dread came creeping in. No, she definitely saw me. I'm sure of it. His expression darkened. Wait, did she know I was here from the beginning? Raziel clenched his teeth. That crazy, disgusting, vile, backstabbing Tilda. He stopped mid-thought, unable to come up with enough insults. But what the fuck is she planning now? As of she just being nice? Whoever said that Raziel swears to put 3, no 4 sharp daggers in their ass. That women is the one of the people he hates passionately. That women accused him of trying to rape her. Chapter 28. Those fuckers are finally gone, Raziel muttered, wiping the cold sweat off his forehead. The tension that had coiled around his chest for the last several minutes slowly began to unwind. He exhaled deeply, breath shaky but relieved. The dense foliage around him no longer felt like it was pressing in to crush him. A faint breeze stirred the leaves above, but it no longer sounded like footsteps. Phase 1 complete. With deliberate care, he climbed down from the thick branch he had been perched on. His movements were cautious, his muscles still taut with the echo of adrenaline. As his boots touched solid ground, he allowed himself a rare moment of stillness. A breath. A heartbeat. Most of his worries were over, for now. Still, a lingering anxiety prickled at the edges of his thoughts like static. What if Arion wasn't worthy enough to claim the heart? What if he failed the trial? What if Raziel had just signed his own death warrant? After all, the contract he made, it wasn't just a bluff. If the heart didn't choose its bearer, Raziel would die. Yeah, Selena. He narrowed his eyes, thinking back. That woman. That conniving, vile, saint-faced snake. She had definitely sensed him earlier. That moment of eye contact, a flicker of recognition in her gaze. The gentle smile she wore, a mask. And yet, she had said nothing. Why? What the hell was she planning now? Selena had already proven that she wasn't following the original script. Years ago, long before the plot's official beginning, she had already begun to deviate. Her personality, her actions utterly different from how the novel had portrayed her. Raziel remembered. There was no event in the original story where she accused him of attempted rape. Yet in this timeline, she had done exactly that. Out of nowhere. And the fallout was enormous. That one false accusation twisted the entire foundation of the plot. It shook public opinion, his reputation, and the trust of key figures. It was one of the major reasons why so many future events became unpredictable. The butterfly effect. Selena. He narrowed his eyes, thinking back. That woman. That conniving, vile, saint-faced snake. She had definitely sensed him earlier. That moment of eye contact, a flicker of recognition in her gaze, the gentle smile she wore, a mask. And yet, she had said nothing. Why? What the hell was she planning now? Selena had already proven that she wasn't following the original script. Years ago, long before the plot's official beginning, she had already begun to deviate. Her personality, her actions utterly different from how the novel had portrayed her. Raziel remembered. There was no event in the original story where she accused him of attempted rape. Yet in this timeline, she had done exactly that. Out of nowhere. And the fallout was enormous. That one false accusation twisted the entire foundation of the plot. It shook public opinion, his reputation, and the trust of key figures. It was one of the major reasons why so many future events became unpredictable. The butterfly effect, wind, earth, lightning, light, etc. They were used in every major profession. Blacksmiths infused them into weapons. Alchemists used them to balance volatile brews. Magicians refined spells with them. Knights used them to reinforce their bodies. Aurors, priests, spirits, tamers, even engineers and farmers had found uses. Artifacts, mana fuel, structural stabilization, construction, medic, agriculture. They were everywhere. And more importantly, they could be absorbed. If you possessed elemental affinity and compatibility with a specific core, you could absorb it, increasing your own mana capacity, elemental alignment, and the purity of your energy. But it wasn't easy. The compatibility had to be natural innate. You couldn't fake affinity, not unless you wanted to end up a twitching corpse. These cores were born in monsters, lodged where their hearts should be. Extracting them without destroying the core required finesse. Raziel admired the shimmering orbs for a long moment. There were 4 distinct colors of elemental cores inside the bag, each one shimmering faintly in the filtered light. Raziel crouched beside it, inspecting the contents with narrowed eyes. Fire, wind, water, and earth. He muttered under his breath, recognizing the most common elemental types at a glance. Of course it'd be these. The universals. The easy ones. These 4 elements were widespread across the continent, found in every nook of terrain, dungeon, and ruin. Their abundance didn't make them weak, not at all. In fact, if wielded by someone with high compatibility, they could become terrifyingly powerful. But rarity brought prestige. Elements like lightning, wood, ice, or light. Those were the elusive ones, hard to find, even harder to master. You couldn't simply stumble into a lightning-type beast in the woods. Still, as rare as those elements were, they didn't always translate to value. Cores were only useful to people born with an affinity for them. Without that, they were just shiny, glowing marbles with no purpose. Well, can be used in other ways, but those processes are rare TP found, so yeah. In some places, rare elemental cores sold dirt cheap because there was no one to use them. In others, their price skyrocketed, especially if someone in power needed that particular element. It was a strange and tricky economy. The cores in Raziel's bag shimmered with gentle pulses of color, like the breath of something sleeping. The light was faint expected. After all, these were only common-ranked elemental cores. He exhaled, pulling one out. Still, 1,000 of them. He eyed the smooth, round core in his hand, no bigger than a marble. Each glowed in its respective color, a crystallized drop of elemental essence. They were divided into broad categories. Common rank, 1st to 3rd tier. Professional rank, 4th to 6th tier. Legendary rank, 6th and 7th tier. Mythical rank, 8th tier. Unranked. A mysterious 9th tier, so rare it defied classification. Naturally, the higher the rank, the more potent the mana and affinity it contained. The advantages gained were proportional. Stronger elemental attunement, increased purity, more efficient mana control. Raziel, however, simply clicked his tongue in annoyance. These are all light faction aligned, he muttered. Of course they are. Useless. Completely and utterly useless to him. Because of the system's damn curse debuff, he couldn't absorb any element belonging to the light faction. And all these elements are of light faction. He scowled. Motherfucker of a system. I heard that, host. The mechanical voice chimed in his head with smug satisfaction. Raziel ignored it and pulled out a special bag from his waist pouch issued by the academy itself. To avoid cheating, candidates weren't allowed to bring their own storage tools into the trial. These regulation-issued bags had limited capacity, only about 1 square feet, and were handed out before the test began. Their purpose was to ensure every core collected came from the field. He dropped the shimmering marbles inside, watching them vanish into the dark inner space. 1,000 cores. That's all they left behind. So stingy. He scoffed, shaking his head. Would it have killed them to leave a few more? Still, there was one silver lining. Any student who passed the trial was allowed to keep the cores they collected after the instructors had counted and verified them, a standard reward policy. And the math. A single third-ranked elemental core goes for around 10 gold coins. He did a quick calculation, his heart thumping in rhythm with every imagined clink of coin. 1,000 cores, at 10 gold coins apiece. That was 10,000 gold coins. His lips curled into a greedy grin. People didn't understand what that kind of money meant. A middle-class family, 3 meals a day, school tuition, house maintenance, clothing, everything could survive a whole month on a single gold coin. And he had 10,000. That was generational wealth. That was power. It was also the minimum price. 4th-ranked cores, the entry level of the professional tier, started at 10,000 gold coins each. From there, prices skyrocketed based on demand, elemental rarity, and the strength of the creature it came from. Raziel's eyes gleamed with golden fire. I'm about to get rich. Just as he closed the bag and slung it over his back. Grr, Tilda. A low, guttural growl rumbled through the air like thunder scraping against stone. Raziel froze. His lips twitched. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple. Very slowly, he raised a hand to his face and dragged it down. Just my fucking shitty luck. The growl deepened. Something heavy shifted behind him. Don't tell me, he whispered to himself. Don't you fucking dare tell me there's a monster behind me now. His heartbeat spiked. His breathing halted. His fingers tightened around the bag strap. Everything had been going perfectly. Absolutely. Stupidly. Wonderfully perfect. And now, he exhaled. Through gritted teeth, barely keeping himself from screaming. Why? Why the fuck? Why now? A shadow loomed over him. Whatever it wasn't small. Chapter 29. Raziel stiffened the moment he heard the low, guttural growl ripple through the air behind him. A jolt ran down his spine. His muscles locked up, but his instinct screamed at him to move. Slowly and very carefully, he turned his head over his shoulder. And there it was. A black, hulking hound stood just meters away in open ground of forest. Its body was low to the ground, coiled like a spring. Muscles rippled beneath a semi-metallic exoskeleton, the plates glinting faintly with a dark gunmetal sheen. Faint wisps of smoke curled from its maw, where dagger-like teeth gleamed like polished steel. Its eyes were pitch-black, depthless voids that looked less like organs and more like twin abysses staring straight into him. Great, Raziel muttered under his breath. Just my fucking luck. He took a silent breath, his heart rate beginning to spike, but his face remained composed barely. A 3rd-ranked monster, a firehound. They weren't rare. Nor were they usually worth panicking over, but this one looked like it had lived through too many fights and walked away from all of them. It had the scars to prove it. Its paws were wreathed in small tongues of crimson flame, crackling faintly each time they pressed against the forest floor. Despite that, it had approached in total silence, eerily so. That was what made firehounds terrifying. For a low-tier monster, they possessed a remarkable gift for stealth. Their bodies made no noise, their presence almost undetectable. It was like death wrapped in silence. Raziel narrowed his eyes. A big dog with murder issues, he murmured. Lovely. But even with all that danger, he couldn't help but recall a strange quirk of this species. They were prideful, stupidly so. Firehounds, unlike most beasts, never attacked their prey from behind. Why now? A shadow loomed over him. Whatever it wasn't small. Chapter 29. Raziel stiffened the moment he heard the low, guttural growl ripple through the air behind him. A jolt ran down his spine. His muscles locked up, but his instinct screamed at him to move. Slowly and very carefully, he turned his head over his shoulder, and there it was. A black, hulking hound stood just meters away, in open ground of forest. Its body was low to the ground, coiled like a spring. Muscles rippled beneath a semi-metallic exoskeleton, the plates glinting faintly with a dark gunmetal sheen. Faint wisps of smoke curled from its maw, where dagger, activating wild survival rulebook. Rule no 1. Don't approach anything bigger than you. You'll be easy prey. Rule number 2. Don't approach anything smaller than you. They definitely don't have friends. Or they're venomous. Rule number 3. Don't approach anything the same size as you. They'll think it's a fair fight. Rule number 4. Don't APR tilde. Just shut up, Raziel snapped under his breath, face twitching. Shut up, you useless piece of shit. Understood, muting wisdom. He rolled his eyes. Figures. When I need something actually useful, you're out here giving me dumb animal proverbs. The firehound growled again, paw shifting half a step forward. Raziel tensed, like teeth gleamed like polished steel. Its eyes were pitch black, depthless voids that looked less like organs and more like twin abysses staring straight into him. Great, Raziel muttered under his breath. Just my fucking luck. He took a silent breath, his heart rate beginning to spike, but his face remained composed barely. A third-ranked monster, a firehound. Activating Wild Survival Rulebook. Rule number 1, don't approach anything bigger than you. You'll be easy prey. Rule number 2, don't approach anything smaller than you. They definitely don't have friends. Or they're venomous. Rule number 3, don't approach anything the same size as you. They'll think it's a fair fight. Rule number 4, don't APR tilde. Just shut up, Raziel snapped under his breath, face twitching. Shut up, you useless piece of shit. Understood, muting wisdom. He rolled his eyes. Figures. When I need something actually useful, you're out here giving me dumb animal proverbs. The firehound growled again, paw shifting half a step forward. Raziel tensed. His breath came low and slow, a cold film of sweat coating the back of his neck. Every instinct told him to run. Every lesson told him to wait. And every curse he'd ever known stacked itself inside his mind, reserved exclusively for this very moment. Guess I'll have to deal with it myself. As always, he muttered grimly. His grip tightened around the hilt of the dagger inside his coat. On the other side of the trial grounds, graveyard of forgotten stones. Swish! A surge of emerald light flared across the cracked earth, briefly illuminating the desolate, uneven terrain. The flash faded as quickly as it came, leaving behind a group of stunned figures now standing in the middle of an unnaturally open space, an eerie contrast to the rest of the trial zone, which had been overrun by jagged boulders and ancient, weather-worn stones. Arion staggered forward half a step, immediately unsheathing his greatsword with a sharp shock. Its edge gleamed faintly in the remaining afterglow. Shit. He cursed under his breath, scanning the strange area with narrowed, sharpened eyes. We were teleported. I didn't even sense that guy. How the hell did I miss it? Around him, nearly 80 candidates stood, dazed and rattled, each trying to comprehend the shout of warning before the teleportation. Their group formation had broken during the warp. Weapons were half raised, stances uncertain. Only instincts kept them from panicking. Where are we? One of the archers muttered, glancing around warily, an arrow already knocked between her fingers. Nyla adjusted her glasses, calm but visibly tense. Her normally cool expression had tightened. Graveyard of Forgotten Stones, she answered. It's a desolate area inside the gates of Worth. We teleported directly to west. A sudden voice boomed through the stony silence, a deep, rugged, almost amused growl that echoed like thunder bouncing off the stone walls. That bastard kid. Made a deal to send one person, and now sent me a whole damn tour group? The voice carried unrestrained power. It didn't shout, but it struck through the air like a shockwave. Arion spun, sword raised, locking eyes in the direction of the voice, and then froze. His breath caught in his throat. Standing just ahead was a towering figure, easily 7 to 8 feet tall, cloaked in a translucent green aura that made the air around him shimmer. His body, though spectral, was built like a war-forged titan, broad shoulders, thick limbs corded with unnatural strength, and long, curved horns rising from his head like the crown of a prideful dragon. In his right hand, he casually held a massive, jade-colored blade, a dragon-forged greatsword, so majestic it seemed to hum with power even in silence. A saint, Arion murmured. His voice trembled. The words nearly caught in his throat. His knuckles whitened on the hilt of his sword as he suppressed his instinct to bow or run. He didn't need anyone to tell him what this being was. He knew. The aura alone gave it away. Only those of saint rank possessed that kind of overwhelming, suffocating presence. His noble upbringing had trained him to recognize it on instant, of course. Behind him, the group collectively recoiled, as though a massive predator had suddenly revealed itself. Weapons were raised. Some stumbled backward, others froze completely. The squad of elite candidates surrounding Selena immediately stepped forward, weapons gleaming, placing themselves between her and the looming entity. The tension in the air snapped taut like a drawn bowstring. Selena herself didn't move, but a single bead of sweat rolled down her cheek. Her golden eyes were locked on the figure in front of them, wide with both recognition and disbelief. "I expected something grandeur," she whispered, almost to herself. "But this is insanity." "Now that's more like it," Karandor said with a satisfied nod, arms folding over his broad chest. "Finally, some normal reactions. That lunatic who came before you? He was just crazy, that's all I can say." His other hand rose, rubbing his chin thoughtfully as his gaze settled on the red-haired boy standing at the front of the group. "So, you're the one that crazy bastard sent here, huh?" Karandor's voice held a strange mix of curiosity and condescension. A slow, predatory grin formed on his lips. Without another word, he leaned in, ignoring the wide-eyed children around him as though they were nothing but shadows. His attention honed completely on Arion, his piercing eyes studying every inch of the boy's face. Arion felt his throat tighten. "Senior," he stammered, the word coming out dry, uncertain. He didn't understand what this spirit meant, or what kind of test he had already walked into. And then it struck. A wave of pressure, raw and suffocating, descended from above like a mountain crashing down on their shoulders. It wasn't visible, but everyone felt it. The very air grew heavy, humming with ancient power. Most of the students staggered where they stood. Their legs shook violently, teeth clenched as if gravity itself had turned hostile. Some dropped to one knee, others gasped for breath as though the air had turned to molten lead. But not Arion. Though he felt the weight press against his chest and spine, though sweat began to form at his temples, he stood his ground. His body tensed, but he didn't fall. The pressure, though immense, was something he could endure, unpleasant, yes, but manageable. He noticed something else. Selena. She too remained firm, her back straight and expression unchanging, as if Kyrandor's aura was nothing more than a breeze. A faint shimmer flickered in her eyes, her mana instinctively reacting, forming a barrier around her without conscious thought. Her unique construction, like his, was different, resistant. Among the sea of trembling bodies and stifled cries, only two remained unfazed. Karandor noticed it too. His eyes glinted. "Interesting," he mused. "Two of you. That bastard really knew what he was doing, didn't he?" The pressure radiating from Karandor wasn't of brute strength or explosive power. It was the weight of his existence, the raw authority of a higher life form that had transcended mortality. It wasn't a show of force, it was dominance, etched into the very air. If he had released his aura with true killing intent, everyone here would have been reduced to ash, crushed under an invisible storm of spiritual might. Even so, the tension was suffocating. Most of the students looked pale, their bodies trembling as though their very souls were shrinking under the presence of the saint. Eyes widened in horror, lips pressed shut to suppress screams. Some clutched their weapons, while others couldn't even raise a hand. Arion and Selena remained standing, though their expressions were far from calm. Their bodies held, but their thoughts reeled. This was beyond anything they had imagined. A saint. A high-ranked saint-level existence. Right here in the middle of the trials. Selena's heart pounded violently in her chest. Arion's fists clenched at his sides, nails digging into his palm. Carindor, observing the two that still held their ground, raised a brow, intrigued. Huh, seems that bastard didn't lie after all. His voice was deep, grating with age, but carried the vigor of a battle-hardened soul. You, red-haired one, you've got the blood of the sun god flowing through your veins, don't you? And definitely dragon weaver, aren't you? Arion blinked. For a second, he thought he'd misheard. Carindor stroked his bearded chin thoughtfully, his glowing eyes narrowing. The dragon aura on you. It's not quite royal blood, but still astonishingly pure for a human. For dragon blood so diluted by generations to remain this potent, it's impressive. His fingers tightened slightly on the hilt of the magnificent green-bladed weapon resting on his shoulder. He's truly gifted. That brat might have been right. If this boy receives the dragon heart, he may very well awaken the path to the royal dragon lineage. The evolution might truly be possible. But even as panic brewed beneath the surface, Arion remained composed. He knew that panicking now was suicide. Before him stood a saint-level powerhouse. If he lost his composure, he could lose much more than just answers. He didn't need to question now. It's better to keep mouth shut about this stuff also. People are around, he thought, looking crowd around who seems like we're busy with their situation must have not heard, right? Forcing a respectful tone, he stepped forward and bowed slightly. Sweat trickled down the side of his face. Senior, he said, voice controlled but respectful. Forgive our intrusion. We were teleported here through the sacred tablet's circle. I wasn't aware someone of your status would be present. Had I known. Carindor waved a massive hand casually, interrupting him. Yeah, I know, he grunted. That's not important. You're in the right place, boy. In fact, you're meant to be here. He leaned forward slightly, a strange gleam in his eyes. You're in the right place. You've earned the right to take the test. I have judged your capabilities. I allow it. To final test to see if you're really worthy of the dragon heart. The words hit Arion like a thunderclap. Arion's heart skipped a beat. His eyes widened, this time unable to hide the glow of surprise and excitement. But before he could react, Carindor continued, his voice softer, almost fatherly. And you can just call me Elder. You're of dragon lineage, after all. The dragon heart. It was real. It actually exists. So it really wasn't a scam. Also, the tension in his chest loosened slightly, and he exhaled slowly. More importantly, Carindor had allowed him to call him Elder. That was no small gesture. In Dragonkin culture, that was an acknowledgement of kinship, a bond. Even if distant, it meant the saint recognized him as one of their own. So long as I don't make a fool of myself, he won't harm me. He's not hostile, at very least. Understood. Elder, Arion replied, bowing his head with renewed reverence. His voice steadier now, more composed. His heart still raced, but at least it wasn't from fear anymore, it was excitement. On the other side, Selena remained completely silent, standing just off to the side with a calm but careful demeanor. Her eyes were calm, but sharp. She didn't say a word, nor did she intend to. She knew better than to speak here. Dragons, especially saint-ranked ones, were prideful beyond reason. Unless you were of their kin, opening your mouth was the fastest way to get turned into cinders. They were volatile, temperamental, and easily offended. It was unwise to challenge them, or even question them. Not to say then having weird mood swings and several anger issues. Selena's reasoning screamed at her to stay still and let Arion handle this. He was the one with dragon lineage. She had no intention of stepping on a landmine. And so, the tension thinned slightly, but the intensity remained. Chapter 30. Elder. Arion spoke, his voice now more composed, carried by a touch of confidence. He had calmed down, at least outwardly. The initial shock of meeting a high-ranked spirit had settled, and he now tried to act with the dignity expected of someone from a prestigious bloodline. Is there truly a trial here? Karendor didn't reply immediately. He simply stared at the boy with an unreadable look before answering with a nod and a low rumble in his voice. Yes. He then narrowed his eyes, the seriousness in his tone becoming unmistakable. But listen, well, boy, this is no mere test. Fail, and none of you will leave this place. Not by force, not by plea. The moment you stepped here, you agreed to the rules I set. Even if you carry the blood of dragons, even if you are kin, I will not show mercy. Everyone's fate here depends on you. The air around him grew heavier, not with killing intent, but with the pressure of divine conviction, a statement bound by oaths and ancient purpose. You must have read the words I carved into the sacred tablet, yes? Karendor asked, folding his arms over his massive frame. Arion blinked, his throat dry. That calm he had gathered a moment ago? It started to fray. If a saint says this is serious, then it's not just serious. It's a death sentence if failed. So no one can leave this place now? Behind him, the group that had barely begun to relax, now tensed again, beads of sweat gliding down foreheads. A low murmur of unease spread like wildfire. Selena's expression hardened, her eyes sharpened, her lips pressing into a line. If it comes to it, I'll use that, she thought, her hand instinctively brushing against the rune seal hidden beneath her gloves. But she didn't act yet, not without cause. Not in front of a saint, it's better if things didn't came to that. I understand, Elder. Arion finally responded, his voice low but resolute. He bowed respectfully. I will do my best not to disappoint you. Even if he didn't have the full picture, he could at least respond with grace and honor. Karendor gave a simple grunt of approval and turned. Good, then follow me. As his towering figure moved forward, the very stones ahead of them, giant, ancient sculptures, began to tremble and shift aside on their own. The earth rumbled as though responding to his will, revealing a narrow stone path hidden beneath. Arion instinctively turned to look back at the group, worry flashing in his eyes. Karendor, without turning, raised his voice. You all stay here. The words weren't a request, they were a command, and one that shook the group down to their cores. His finger then pointed directly toward Arion, and then toward Selena. You boy, and you girl, you both come. His golden eyes briefly flared. If the boy fails, the girl shall be tested next. A stunned silence followed. The others nearly gasped aloud. Even the Saintess's guards looked as though they wanted to object, but none dared to speak. Selena met Arion's gaze, sighed. He pinched the bridge of his nose, his voice suddenly filled with awkward frustration. No, that ridiculous altar wasn't my doing. And the fee of 1,000 elemental cores? He looked genuinely embarrassed. That was that damn rude kid's idea. The same one who convinced me to prepare for your arrival in the first place. Huh? Arion blinked, utterly baffled. Even Selena, usually composed, narrowed her eyes sharply. A thought began to flicker at the edge of her mind. Karendor caught their reactions and chuckled dryly. Judging from your expressions, I take it you haven't met him yet. He shook his head with clear exasperation. Well, I'm not surprised. With a personality like his, it's a miracle anyone can tolerate being around him. Arion furrowed his brows. Elder, forgive my bluntness, but who are you talking about? His patience had reached its end. Well, I don't know his name, but it was that crazy kid? Karendor began, his voice holding an amused undertone. I can't tell whole story, so I will translate his words for you, Karendor said. In easy words that lunatic said he knows someone worthy enough. Someone he believed in so much that he brought them here just to claim the Dragonheart will. I didn't trust him, but again, he gave Arion a dry look. But judging by the fact that you're standing here, maybe he wasn't entirely full of nonsense. There was a brief pause. He would never do something like this. Not in a million years. His voice cracked slightly, overwhelmed with denial. The sheer absurdity of the thought made his brain itch. Karandor blinked, then raised a finger casually. Oh no. I'm sure it was him. Don't worry about the no leaving this place part. I made an exception. You Tilda, wait, what? Arion nearly stumbled backward. Karandor's smile was easy, almost too casual. Ah, yes. Normally I don't break rules. But in his case, we signed a blood spirit contract. Arion's pupils dilated. Selena instinctively took a step forward. A what? The dragon said, entirely unbothered. We signed a blood spirit contract. That boy, he was insanely confident. He gambled his life, set conditions himself that he'd personally bring the one worthy of the dragon heart here in 1 hour, that you would pass dragon heart test and earn it. If he failed to these conditions, Kyrandor paused dramatically, then tilted his head with a smile. He dies. Simple. He paused, his lips curling into a rare, genuine smile. Karandor chuckled again, the sound deep and reverberating like thunder on a mountain peak. It was heroic. Even for someone like me, prideful and ancient, I couldn't help but be impressed by that boy. There was silence. And then, Arion? He did what? The Saintess screamed. The air trembled at her outburst. Selena's expression was a perfect picture of absolute earth-shattering shock. Her eyes were wide, glimmering with disbelief. Her mouth hung open, trembling slightly. What? Her voice cracked in half as if her brain was refusing to process the words. He bet his life on that? For Arion? He did what? He finally asked in a whisper.